Hello and welcome to another D&D Stories. I'm your host, TheWriter. This is the show where I sit here and regale you with all the interesting stories and remember when something cool happened playing tabletop games. And we return once more to the campaign of Kobold Mountains, and the siege of Loggington is upon us. Now, our heroes took the sleep potion to make sure they could sleep at least 8 of the next 16 hours while the town was preparing itself and fortifying for the attack waves that were to come. Because when our heroes were inside the Kobold's den, or whatever you want to call it, they found out that Maelstrom, leader of the Kobold, was going to be leading the final assault on Loggington tomorrow, and it's almost tomorrow. So again, we know that Kobold don't like running around during the daytime, so tomorrow for them is dusk. Which means, like when the sun touches the mountains and starts to disappear, that's when they're going to show up. That's high noon somewhere. And so our heroes get up, they've got all their HP back, they've raided the apothecary, the poor woman got stabbed and killed. They raid the store for potions and other things like that. And they get up onto the walls, like this is gonna be like their Helm's Deep. They're gonna be up on the walls watching, waiting. And right away they notice that they don't just pop out of the trees. They come in organized, in rows of 10. Kobolds start showing up on all sides of Loggington. And there's militiamen ringing the bell to say there are kobold on this side of the town, and all the bells are ringing. So there are 50 kobold off in 6 different directions. So that's 300 some odd kobold have come to take over this tiny little town. Like I said, it's just a couple of dozen houses, logging out in the middle of nowhere in these mountains by the one road that goes through the range. And there are 300 kobold waiting, and they go, oh crap, this is going to suck. We can't mow through 300 kobold. How are we going to do this? And they see Maelstrom come out. Again, he's got the fancy leather armor and the eye patch, and he's got that gem. He's still got that gem on a strap of leather on his hip that he can use to resurrect kobold should they die in battle. And they've got, their little short swords and their spears and their short bows. They only come up to people's waists, but that doesn't make them any less dangerous. And the militia guys are up on the wall with their longbows or with their anything they can throw. They don't want to throw alchemist fire or anything. They're in the middle of the woods, and all the walls are made of wood. It's just like a fort sort of town. And there's this long silence between them, and out of the foliage also emerges the green dragon from earlier, and this time he's the size of a cart horse. And so apparently Maelstrom's gem works on things besides just kobold, and our ranger kind of leans and didn't I strip him of all his scales and burn the body? Well, apparently it doesn't take much, so if he had broke into Chateau Tygar once more and retrieved the body or the remains, he must have brought it back with an ounce more of magic this time, because now he's bigger and now he's pissed off because you guys killed him, and he's like, oh great. And of course the green dragon looks up onto the wall to see all the militia people and sees the our 3 party members. He's like, you, pointing that long hooked claw at them. And Maelstrom kind of steps up. He's got his sword in one hand. He's got a hand crossbow in the other hand. It's now is the time of the kobold. Rip the fucking place to the ground. Go, go, go. And they start ringing their weapons up against their shields, and they're banging each other's helmets, riling themselves up. It's start, for the gates, let's go. Rah. And this siege begins, and right away the green dragon and Maelstrom lead the way for this giant group of kobold that are right behind them. So, of course, the green dragon opens with acid breath to just destroy the gate. It doesn't matter how much they reinforce the gate or put logs and stuff behind it to hold it against the tiny kobolds. Acid everywhere. and there's militia guys already falling off the wall because it just sprayed in the big cone shape. It's like, this thing is like the size of a cart horse or a draft horse. It's much bigger than you now. And they go, oh, crap. So this town-wide battle goes around. You can hear the clash of sword and steel, and you can see arrows, stray arrows flying up through the air. There's roofs that are on fire. Sir Landon the Knight is running back and forth, just like killing Kobold as he can, because, again, Kobold only have like 4 hit points, but with Maelstrom running around, just resurrecting them as he pleases, it doesn't do a lot of good. It's like, well, you get XP for killing that Kobold, but then, Maelstrom pops by 4 rounds later and brings it back, and he charges off somewhere else to light the next house on fire, or whatever it happens to be. So it comes down to being between our 3 heroes and the dragon, because if they can take out, like, the Kobold's secret weapon, then maybe they can turn the tide of battle. And, of course, Sir Landon the Knight runs in there to play the tank and gets a face full of acid and loses pretty much everything. And I said, none of your stuff is acid resist, and you're standing right in front of him. Like, you can lose like 95% of your items and or die. So let's roll them bones. And we rolled out the damage, and he goes straight to 0. And the only thing that keeps him from like laying in a pool of acid and slowly like just disintegrating is the fact that he's laying on a big shield, so that it would take the acid much longer to get to him. But he goes down immediately, and our ranger is like, goes up like one of the sentry towers and is like trying to shoot down at this dragon. Meanwhile, our cleric is still running around trying to like mow down Kobold as best as he can to keep like a clear battlefield to fight against the dragon, because God knows it would be embarrassing to be flanked by a Kobold in a dragon fight. So it gets to a point, though, and the Kobold, just by sheer numbers and by the spray of acid opening the gate, the Kobolds are flooding into the town, so it's just a melee all over the place. The women and the children are hiding in basements. There's stuff on fire. Again, there's arrows flying every which way. There's dead guys laying everywhere. There's Kobold getting sliced in half while Maelstrom is running around playing Mercy, just like, I resurrect you, Kobold, and I resurrect you, Kobold, and I resurrect you too, Kobold. It's like this gem that he's got either has infinite charges or it's not what it seems or something, because it's very, very odd and unusual that he can just run around and do this as many times as he wants. But Maelstrom does not participate in the fight because, again, they weren't able to damage him, so all he has to do is play keep away and keep bringing his soldiers back to life. So whenever 5 or 6 Kobold die in between 2 of the houses, he can just lean between the 2 houses, wave the gem, and they get up and start causing more trouble. So it's a losing battle because of this artifact that he's got. And when the gate goes down, though, right after Sir Landon fell, Guard sees that the cats that he was taking care of just go everywhere. And if you remember, Guard is the giant, like, hollow suit of armor that just kind of wandered in from the mountains at one point. And, like, the stray cats like him and the children crawl on him. But now there's a battle going on all around him. And the Kobold really haven't bothered him because he hasn't moved. They might think he's like a statue or something. But as the dragon fight goes on, our ranger runs back down the tower like this is going nowhere fast. If they don't get rid of this dragon, then they're going to lose Loggington entirely. And so she runs straight up to Guard, like, Guard, you have to get up. Your name is Guard. Guard us. Do something. And Guard slowly kind of like lumbers to his feet, like really slow. You can hear the hydraulics like in his shoulders and in his back, moving him around just a bit. He's not Warforged, but he's just like, I don't want to say a mech suit, but something close to it. He's a shell that's meant for a pilot. And as our ranger stands there in front of him, his chest plate comes open, and then like his codpiece flips down, and the leggings like pop off for a few moments, and he stands there like he's ready to receive somebody to get inside him. And our ranger's like, okay. I throw my bow to one side and I climb into guard, and I go, the whole thing just like closes like a Venus flytrap, and you can hear all the screws redoing themselves and the hydraulics like lifting up, and you can feel bands like clamping down over your body to read your muscles and all this other shit. You're basically wearing guard now. And she goes, oh my God, that's awesome. And I had a character sheet for guard, complete with all of his outrageous physical stats. And I laid it over hers, and I go, you're still you, but your stats are now guards. So, go to town, do whatever you want to do. And she's like, I run up to the dragon and I punch it in the fucking face. Ah! And they were not kidding about how powerful guard was, because with one blow, after Sir Landon fought it, after some of the militiamen fought it, with one blow, the ranger slams this thing over the freaking face. Teeth go flying out the other side of its face, and like the jaw breaks, and like pieces of scales just like fly off like glitter. And they both like stand there for a few seconds, and you can see like the bulge that's coming out from under the scales on its face, and the dragon falls over with a brain hemorrhage and just dies on the spot. And she's like, oh my God, that was fucking awesome. She one-shotted this thing. Like, as soon as she got into melee range, one-shotted this thing right in the face. And she's like, okay, I turn and look for Maelstrom so he can't bring the dragon back bigger than before. Like, they don't know what happened that made it bigger than before, because it was a wormling when they last saw it, and this time it was a large creature. So if it comes back and it's huge, they're going to have problems. But she turns guard around. It's like the prototype Iron Man armor. It's just like completely out of place in this medieval fantasy setting. And he's like, I walk guard over, I like bring down the wall of a burning house so it'll burn less onto some kobold, and I'm just gonna like squish fucking kobold with my fist everywhere I go. And they are unable to find Maelstrom, but the militia is failing. Guard alone cannot defend this entire town. So one of the side hatches of the fort walls, like hidden in the bushes and stuff, was flipped open, and the second bell was sounded, which meant it was time to retreat, to run. So all the women, all the children come up out of the basements. They make a run. They make a beeline through the foliage as the kobolds are just like chopping people down as they go. The militiamen are there with like their pitchforks. They're not army men. They're doing the best they can to defend their homes. And when you put a kobold up against a regular like farmer or logger or whatever, it's kind of an even fight. So there's a lot of death on both sides. And you look up and you see Maelstrom standing atop of one of the houses, just kind of like doing the Captain Morgan pose, leaning with one arm on the on his knee, grinning down at you with his one good eye, and like tossing the gem up and down in his fists. And he's like, I can't get up there. Guard's too heavy. And I go, after X amount of time, guard's armor pops open again. Like, you can only stay in there for so long because it's clearly not meant for you. And she goes, not meant for me. And I go, yeah, it was as tight as the bands were around your legs and stuff. It feels like it was made for something smaller, like a halfling or a dwarf. And he goes, this is, okay, this was probably like some sentient dwarven invention, or those crazy gnomes put together some robot armor to fight in a war a long time ago, and this one just wandered off. Is like, it's not meant for a full-size person. So after a while, the inside of guard kind of like rejects her. It was like, well, I could shoot up at Maelstrom with my bow, but I left it way over there, and he'll be gone by the time I get back. So And of course, the stray cats from all over Loggington run up Guard's legs and like sit on his shoulders and on his head, and he's got his hands both out holding cats in his giant hands. Critter, go now! And he turns towards one of the main exits and starts like lumbering along. And of course, the kobold don't try to stop him because he's 9 feet tall and made of God knows what. And Maelstrom lets him go as well. So he stomps past the dragon and out into the mountains, never to be seen again. They lost Guard that day. And go, how did we lose him? He's 9 feet tall and he leaves these giant fucking footprints everywhere he goes. It's like, I roll survival. Once they got away, I roll survival. She rolls like a 3, and I was like, well, you lost him. You can only do that once. You can't keep re-rolling it until you get a good score, so you lost Guard entirely. He is out there in the mountains somewhere with his kitties. Critter is off in the mist somewhere. Critter. But by and large, Loggington lost. The militiamen lasted as long as they could, and then they sounded the retreat as the kobolds swarmed over the place. And our heroes, after they were sure like the last like holdout basement was empty and everybody was running for it, they retreated as well. Because again, Maelstrom was running around with that gem, resurrecting Kobold as he pleased. And, he could deflect arrows and he could do this and that, and he could not be harmed. And I know you're probably turning your nose up at Maelstrom because, they can't hurt him because he's a storyline villain. There are actually items in 3.5 that can, turn arrows, turn spells. You could get 2 magic rings and an amulet and be immune to most damage. So depending on what Maelstrom was wearing, he was fairly immune to all forms of damage. You would basically have to strip him of his gear in order to get to him. But with that gem in hand and with 300 other kobold, brought back to life or not, he was able to take Loggington for the Kobold Mountain, empire, or whatever you want to call it. I guess the tribe, I guess they would call it. The tribe of Maelstrom took down Loggington, and all the humans fled to the east, to the Dakota fields, which is just the name of that region. And they go, God, that was freaking awful. They kicked our asses. So, now Maelstrom and his kobold have Loggington. They have a fort, a defendable location. So even if, the king or whoever sends his armies up there, it's not going to go good because Maelstrom also has the body of the green dragon. The ranger did not have time to like strip him of his scales or his teeth or anything this time, and the body was too big to like cart away. So all Maelstrom's got to do is run over there and wave the gem over him, and he'll get up again, probably more pissed off. Guard got a lucky hit in. He rolled the crit, confirmed the crit, and did maximum damage. So it gave him a freaking brain hemorrhage and broke his jaw at the same time because he has those giant freaking garnet fists that you never see except in cartoons. But yes, Guard had served his purpose, but unfortunately we lost it out in the end. So everybody fled, being chased by Kobold here and there to the east. So we started in the starting town, Franz. We moved to Loggington, and now we continue to go east to Dakota Fields. And Dakota Fields is a cobblestone-streeted place with stone buildings and a great cathedral, and it's a trade hub town. It's like the crossroads of that region. It's got roads from every compass direction, like an all roads lead to Rome kind of thing. So everybody's house is made of stone. The streets have irrigation spots for rainwater and different things like that. And they go on towards Dakota Fields, and let me check my notes. Yes, while they're heading towards Dakota Fields, like I said, they were attacked by Kobold, and they managed to capture one alive, which is not something I should have allowed as a DM to this particular group of people, or in general. Because something bad happens, and whether you're a veteran of D&D or whether you're just listening because you like fantasy stories and you've never played D&D, what I call the prisoner dilemma is never good. It's never good to let your players have a prisoner of any description, because there's always the guy that wants to kill them right away. There's, the up-and-coming young justice that wants to bring them into prison. There's the one who wants to torture them for like information or whatever. And then there's the one that wants to let them go. And it doesn't matter who your players are, they never all agree. So they've got this kobold in the middle of the road, like 2/3 of the way to Dakota Fields. They're almost out of the mountains, and they caught this poor creature. And they tied him up, and they set him on a log, and like, well, we should probably drill him for information. If we can find out more about Maelstrom or whatever makes him so powerful, it might help us. Because if the kobold branch out towards Dakota Fields, it's going to be bad. And they go, well, so how do we do this? How do we interrogate somebody? And I'm behind the DM screen like, oh God, I shouldn't have let this happen. I should have given him like a poison capsule or something weird so that he couldn't be like captured alive. And right away, our cleric, let's just name him Jason. Our cleric decides that he wants to interrogate the kobold. And like rough him up and stuff. And this cleric is a cleric of a god of like healing and mercy and tolerance. And I forget if he was in the DMG or if we pulled like a homebrew god or something, just like a relatively non-violent, like give mercy to those who ask for it, punish evil, that kind of thing. And oh my God, you would have thought this cleric was Batman. He like immediately just runs up and like just smacks this thing over the face. He's like, who sent you? Kobold! And it's like, he may not understand you. He may not speak common like Maelstrom does. And he's like, what is your mission? Smack! Kobold! And it's like, he either doesn't understand you or he's making fun of you, one of the two. And he's like, what is your name? Smack, smack. Kobold! And everybody's laughing because I don't know how to represent Draconic or to represent like Koboldese or whatever you've got. But Jason like smacks this guy around for a while and like threatens him and shakes him around. And it's like he doesn't understand. Dude, this would be like you going to China and going into like a random cell somewhere and trying to interrogate a serial killer. He doesn't understand. You can't really communicate what you want to him with words or pictures or anything, because as far as I know, kobolds don't have a writing system, but that's neither here nor there. He's like, well, he's not, and then it went right over the edge, and he goes, well, he's not of any use to us. I throw him on the ground and I step on his neck to kill him. And I was like, Jesus Christ. And I looked down like behind the DMG where I've got like all of his cleric tenets. And the first thing is, show mercy to your enemies in like helpless situations. Like if they're bound before you. In fact, I think it did say, show mercy to prisoners and those that surrender. And he freaking killed this kobold in cold blood. I was like, wow. Your powers are gone. And he goes, what? What do you mean? And I go, you picked a god of like mercy and love and freaking healing and all that. And I turn it over because he's got the same cue card that I do. And it says, you see where it says, accept a surrendering opponent, show mercy to the downtrodden, and different things like that. He was absolutely no threat to you, and you had him where you wanted him, and you killed him in cold blood. And I go, well, we killed all those other kobold. I said, yeah, but this one surrendered, and you took him alive, and then you tortured him, and then you killed him. That's against your cleric tenets. And he goes, why didn't you warn me? I said, I'm the voiceless narrator. God doesn't step down and say, stop doing that or I'll take your powers away. That's not how it works. Otherwise, why have them? So he became a fallen cleric for torturing and killing a helpless kobold on the roadside. And you might argue with that, and I'm sure a lot of people will argue in the comments, oh, they killed all those other kobolds, didn't do anything. But they captured this one alive. And it was like, you decided to be the interrogator, and just like, how did you become a cleric of mercy if this is how you treat your enemies? Turn the other cheek, do something. No, stepped on his neck and killed him. They could have just tied him to a tree and left him there, but no. So the prisoner dilemma, in whatever form it might take, it's like if you broke into a cave full of orcs, and in like the very back room, you found like 3 or 4 pregnant orcs and like 5 or 6 children. Do you kill them? They're at your mercy. The freaking monster manual says that they're evil. We should smite evil, but it's like pregnant women and children. Really? Is that what you're going to go for? So it's that weird gray line. Argue it out in the comments. I don't care. But so he loses his cleric powers and becomes a fallen cleric. You're like, okay, you're going to have to start taking levels in something else until you can either get your powers back or find some sort of atonement, or you can just take levels in whatever else you want. You can't use your cleric magic anymore. And he goes, shit. So, let's see. Where did my notes go? Right about that time, I had managed, and we would kind of cut and break there. And by that time, the next week, I'd managed to secure another player, a 4th player for us, and we'll call her Brittany. She decided she wanted to be a cleric, and being a part of Gamers Guild in the middle of the summer doesn't do you a lot of good because everybody was gone from college and had scattered to the 49 other states that we were all from, and very few were left there like on and around campus. So I was talking to a bunch of people, hey, I'm running this big campaign, I need a 4th person. They're kind of getting their butts kicked a lot. And it's like, this person can't do it, this person's got work, this person's going on vacation. I managed to snag one person. We'll call her Brittany again. And she decides, oh, that sounds interesting. I'll roll up a cleric. And I was like, okay, well, here's the Facebook group, and here's all the things you can do. Here's all the things, we don't want to see, like, as far as, like, table etiquette and stuff like that. Silence your cell phone, no flying, no spider climb, stuff like that. Just, like, things that were, like, tight-knit within our group expectations. And I was like, okay, well, you've got a whole week. Just like roll up a 5th level character or whatever they were at the time. I think it was level 5. But roll up a 5th level character. Come in next week, and I'll shoehorn you in somehow. And she goes, okay, I'll play a cleric. And I was like, oh, good. We just lost a cleric, so we go for a ways. We were leaving Loggington, heading towards Dakota Fields, and who should come up behind them on the road but Lord Tiberius Tygar, his son Bino, and a stranger, our new cleric. And we go, how did you get across the mountains? The kobold are everywhere. And he goes, well, we didn't. And Tiberius goes, well, we didn't take the road. We heard all the warnings that Loggington had been destroyed or captured by Kobold. And they go, well, we tried that, and we ran into a displacer beast and an ogre. And I go, well, I guess we're just lucky like that. Ha ha. And he goes, I am taking my son to Dakota Fields, to the cathedral, and it seems that he is sick, he is ill, and he is going into fits. And we go, really? What's the matter with him? We look down at Bino, and again, he's like 12 or 13. He's just hitting puberty. And apparently he's having like visions of the future or visions of the far past or something like that. And he would like stop and his eyes would glaze over and he would just like babble nonsense for a while. He's like, in the future, You will drive on a parkway and park on a driveway. And then he would stare at you for like 10 seconds before he came back to himself. He would say I wrote down like 20 random things. And it's like, in the future, the information superhighway will be mounted on your dashboard. Invest in Apple. Invest in Apple. Like things that were going to happen 2,000 years from now, maybe in this setting, that had no context for them right now. It's like, see, he's clearly ill. And they didn't know it because their characters were not familiar with the whole context for Beano's parentage. But you got to think about it from your perspective. Beano was what? Part tiger person, part human, part demon, and part whatever Natishka was, I guess tiefling, part tiefling. So he's got a weird bunch of genes running around in him, and as soon as he hit puberty, this new ability starts manifesting itself. Like it could be like sorcery, it could be like oracle powers. You know, oracle is actually a class. He's having uncontrollable visions at weird intervals, and his father is, of course, losing his mind and losing a lot of sleep, trying to figure out what's wrong with him. But he decides that since his son is speaking in tongues, he's going to take him across Kobold Mountains to Dakota Fields. Because if you remember, there is a great big cathedral there, and if somebody's speaking in tongues, you take them to see a great holy man. So maybe the Hierophant or a priest or a monk would be able to cure him of what ails him, or at least identify it so they could treat it. And he goes, well, we are going to go on ahead, because they've got horses and he doesn't want to walk with Beano doing all this weird stuff. We're going to go on ahead once they reach the foot of the mountain. You travel with my cleric here, and the cleric Brittany was kind of like shoehorned into the party, like, cover our butts. We're going to run on to Dakota Fields. And I go, okay, Tiberius has left you there with the party, so you've like officially joined them, and they introduce each other. I am Sir Landon the Knight, the Knight of House Tygar, and I am so and so, the Ranger, Knight Errant of House Tygar, and I am so and so. And he almost said cleric. He's like, I'm so and so, Knight Errant. And it's like, he can't say cleric anymore because he lost his powers. But Brittany, we noticed right away, was quite possibly the worst D&D player we've ever seen in our lives. And I've yet to see anybody ever top her. And this isn't like she didn't know how to play the game kind of thing, because that can be taught. What was bad about her was her gaming etiquette. Like, if it wasn't her turn, she'd be there, like, texting on her phone. And we had something called the cell phone tower, where everybody would stack their cell phones on top of each other, and that way you couldn't just, like, reach and grab your phone and be distracted from the game. No, she had her volume up all the way, beep, boop, beep, 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 boop, beep, boop. When it wasn't her turn, it drove me insane. And she was, like, cruising the internet, swiping left and right and doing all these different things. I was like, they go through several fights on the way out across, like, out of the foothills, because the kobolds are, like, chasing them away. And when you go through several battles, you take several bits of damage, even from kobold, if they're just, like, throwing spears at you and rocks and trying to, get out of kobold lands, kobold, these are our mountains, while they're running. And somebody got hurt really badly. I think it was Landon. And he goes, cleric, can you use your magic to heal me? And Brittany looks up from her phone and goes, why should I heal him? And the table just goes silent. And I go, your boss left you with them to help out. And she goes, yeah, but why would my character do that? And I was like, what alignment are you? And she's like, chaotic neutral. And I was like, oh, you're insane. Great. That's just what I need. A chaotic neutral anything. I can do what I want because I'm chaotic neutral. Nah. No. And don't bring up the alignment argument, because I don't care. Brittany was selfish. She was doing her cell phone. She didn't want to heal anybody. They had to burn a bunch of potions just to get out of the mountains alive. Helping people along the roadside. They found like a sick old man and they carried him quite a ways until they got to a horse and cart and all this other stuff. And I was like, wow, Brittany, what exactly were you planning for your character to do if you're not? It's a team sport. I have to tell people that sometimes, but never so explicitly. Like, you don't want to heal anybody. You don't want to work with anybody. And, as soon as they get to Dakota Fields, she's gone. She leaves the party behind. And, the stress level at the table is going up because we've never seen somebody so abrasive in our freaking lives when it comes to working with a, you might hate the quarterback, but you still protect him, or you might freaking hate the pitcher's guts, but he still throws as hard as he can. It just, I didn't have a context for somebody who acted this way. Like, what a bitch. Like, after a while, she'd been on her phone long enough. Like, I was describing Dakota Fields to him. I was like, oh, there's wonderful cobblestone streets, and the cathedral is huge. Clearly, these are a people who are close with their God, and, the marketplace is stone, where you can rent out all these locations and just, like, drape your store sign over it, and as long as you leave it clean, it's only like a silver piece a day. And the streets have children running about with like brooms and dustpans, and there's hardly any horse poop in the road and stuff like this. And I'm going down like 3 paragraphs to tell them about stained glass windows and laughing children in the park and all this stuff. And Brittany's, no, she's on her phone. Finally, I pick up a D20 and I just like pelt her with it. What the hell? Pay attention. Just, I think we're gonna break here, And by then, like, I was at the end of my rope. I was like, don't sit at my table if you're freaking gonna do this garbage. Like, I didn't say this to her. I was like, just don't sit at my table if you're gonna do this garbage. And we break. And Brittany had like her own like lunch and sandwich stuff, and we decided to go next door. We were at a game shop at the time. We go next door to like Hardee's, and it's like, we should kick her out. That's like the first thing out of my mouth is like, no, I made a mistake. Okay, all in favor, and everybody's hand goes up. So we broke there after a while, and Brittany goes home. She drives home, and I took a vote, like I said, and everybody's like, yes, get rid of her now. So we had her for a very short time, and I sent her a message on Facebook. I was like, this game, this gaming group, it's clearly not for you. I didn't say anything about the way she acted. I apologized for hitting her with the D20. I didn't say anything mean. I was like, clearly this style of gameplay is not your forte. It's not, hope you have a great summer. Gamers Guild is still meeting during the summer at this location, blah, 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 blah. And threw her out of the group, basically. And I got a message from her like 2 weeks later that said, oh, I don't think I'm going to be able to come to the campaign anymore. I've got stuff to do for X, Y, and Z. And I was like, she didn't even fucking read my message, did she? Oh, boy. So I was like, we were glad to be rid of her, but my God. So as soon as we get back, of course, it's Sir Landon who comes up to Tiberius at the cathedral. And he's like, Lord Tiberius, I notice, your cleric friend is gone. What happened to her? And Tiberius is like leaning on one of the grand stone archways and goes, I fired her out of a catapult into the sun. Everybody at the table laughs. It's like, yep, she's gone. She's never coming back. Thank God for it, or thank Palor, whatever cathedral we're in. And, of course, the cathedral is the same god of like, love, hope, and mercy that our former cleric used to be. So this is his opportunity to seek atonement. And they go, and they're like, can we my son is ailing and speaking in tongues. Can we please see like the Hierophant or the bishop or whatever the ranking holy man here is, or the high priestess, whatever. And he goes, no, the city, Dakota Fields, is filled to the bursting with refugees from Loggington. Loggington was like close to 1,000 people, and almost everybody ran east. So, what's the first place to go when you're a refugee in like a medieval setting? You run to the church. So there's people in all the pews. There's people trying to sleep on the floor. They're sitting in the hallways. They're passing out bread and water as fast as they can. And he goes, everybody is miserable. These people are about to freaking kill each other. The morale is at an all-time low. I'm sorry, we cannot bring the Hierophant to see you just now. He is very, very busy trying to take care of this sudden influx of people fleeing the Kobold from Kobold Mountains. And they go, damn it, his son is ailing, but his son is one of many. So he's kind of got Bino in like a side room where a monk will come by now and then with food, but that's really all they can do for right now. And it's like, well, what can we do about this? And Sir Landon steps up and he's like, well, everybody's gathered in like the main area with all the pews and the dais and stuff. He's like, well, I'm going to give them all a pep talk. And I go, you are? Really? And he goes, yeah, I've got good charisma. I'm a knight. It's like I sheathe my sword and, put my shield away, and, I take off my helmet and I put it on the little, on the podium. And it's like I roll, I was like, what are you going to roll? Like just charisma or diplomacy or whatever? How are you going to cheer these people up? And he goes, I'm going to sing for them, Everyone's a Hero from Dr. Horrible. And I go, what? And he pulls up his laptop and he puts in, Dr. Horrible, Everyone's a Hero on YouTube. And he turns it around so we can all watch it. And he throws the dice, 20, because of course. So if you don't know that song, stop me now, pull up a new tab, and listen to Dr. Horrible's Everyone's a Hero. And he immediately unites the entire room in song. They like join hands and they lean back and forth like they're at a country music freaking concert or something. And the morale of the place goes way up, and the babies stop crying, and the women stop fretting, and the men stop like cracking their knuckles at each other because there's not enough room and stuff like that. He unites everyone in song like a Disney princess. And of course the Hierophant hears of this because the mood of the entire temple, the entire cathedral has changed. And he goes, thank you, Sir Knight. You have certainly helped in your own way to make sure that people stay safe now that they are all crammed into this small area. You've lifted their hearts and their spirits. Is there anything I can do to help you in particular? And he goes, yes, Hierophant, please, come and see this small boy. And he goes, oh, generous to the end, of course. And he leads this old man along. And I think the Hierophant was like a level 18 something or another. I think Hierophant is actually a prestige class, but he was a great and powerful holy man who could probably do like, miracle and wish and all those other things. He could cast the atonement spell, wink, wink towards our non-cleric. And he goes in there, and, Tiberius, of course, gets up right away. Hierophant, my son is ailing and speaking in strange tongues in the future things or past things. I can't tell what's wrong with him. He's sweating and feverish. He stares off into the distance and talks about things that I have no idea what. And, of course, the Hierophant goes down the long list of questions. What's his parentage? This could just be, he's hitting puberty. He might be a sorcerer. So, of course, he learns about Natishka, the tiefling woman from another dimension, who gave him the head of a tiger and all that stuff. Probably why they got left alone so much is because nobody wanted to go near Tiberius with his tiger head. But the Hierophant was good at keeping a straight face and not showing fear. So, of course, the union of a tiger-headed man and a half-demon woman from another dimension had yielded this child who was no doubt going to be quite potent as he grew up. So, and on top of inheriting this massive empire, this fortune from Chateau Tigar and all the trade caravans they had their hands in. And he goes, well, his parentage is unusual. Perhaps this is, the mixing of the two bloodlines has yielded something new and amazing, though clearly it ails him badly. And so the Hierophant kind of like, sits in a chair for a while to kind of like watch Beano while he's like sitting there like malaria sweating, and asks Tiberius all kinds of questions. What does he eat? How old is he? What does he do for fun? There's his little wooden Landon doll that he painted at the dinner is sitting off on a bedside table to one side, so he's still got the hero worship thing going on. And he goes, we could suppress his powers for now. I mean, it is not beyond my power to seal someone's magic within their heart, or bind their active spirits to save them health-wise. And when he is an adult, the seal would come undone, and he could be, old enough, mature enough, and be able to seek out a mentor, a master, and his body would be able to handle it. But right now he is like a great geyser or a wellspring of powerful magics that cannot, his young mind, his tiny body cannot handle this. So I advise that we seal him immediately. And when he comes of age, we will unseal him, and he will seek out a teacher for whatever visions, whatever oracle things are happening to him. So Beano got 1 level in oracle just then, because the Hierophant decided that's what this was. He was seeing not the past, but the future. So, and post-cognition is not the most pleasant of gifts, but I digress. So Beano is a level 1 oracle at age 13. And the Hierophant, he goes and gets his monk buddies and his priest buddies, and they draw the magic circle, and they sprinkle the dust, and they do all the chanting, all the magic, and it's like, Tiberius, all these materials, and he goes, don't worry about it. The Tigar Empire can more than sustain such a bill to make sure its future leader, its future matriarch will be okay. Once my son hits 18, the empire is his. I have no control over all this money. So he'll transfer the funds to the church, to pay for all the diamond dust and the ancient unicorn horn and whatever, all the crazy holy magic stuff that needs to be dug out of like the lowest cellar that they never use. And then like the holy water and the cedar oil and all that stuff. And they draw runes. They take them to a big room, and they draw the magic circle, and they sprinkle the diamond dust, and they light the candles, and they do this holy ritual in front of this big stained glass window and like they wrap him in a sheet and do the cross on his shoulders and on his forehead and all that stuff to seal Beano's magic up until such the day that he becomes a man and his body can handle it. And so it's like, Tiberius here, take Beano and go rest. And of course, 1,000 thank yous, Hierophant, and all the rest. And just then, just as this touching scene is ending, Jason, our fallen cleric, kind of jumps in before the Hierophant can go anywhere. He goes, Hierophant, I have come seeking atonement for my sins. Please, forgive me, Father, for I have sinned. And he goes, what has become of you? Your holy powers are no longer endowed to your body. And he tells them what happened, that they've been fighting their way across the Kobold Mountains, and that he had taken such a hatred for these little creatures that had been had been peppering them with arrows and freaking crossbow bolts the whole way, and the siege of Loggington, etc., and how they'd captured one kobold alive, and when they tried to drill it for information, he'd stepped on its neck and killed it. And the Hierophant kind of leans back. He's got his staff between his hands. He's like, Well, we follow a God of patience and mercy and healing, young Jason. You have betrayed one of the three tenets because of your impatience. Your prisoner did not understand you, and in your impatience you ended his life. That is a cruel thing to do. And he goes, Hierophant, please, is there anything I can do to make this right? I can't bring that kobold back to life. His body could be anywhere, and knowing Maelstrom, he's already brought him back to life. So there are no magical means for me to gain my powers back and to seek any kind of atonement with my victim. But is there anything I can do in the eyes of our God? And he goes, well, the atonement spell is not beyond my powers. He's a level 18 Hierophant. Of course he can do that. In atonement, the spell is basically, it wipes the slate clean by magic. Like all your sins, all your wrongdoings, anything evil you've ever done in the eyes of your God, it's basically like a big reset button. But it's very expensive, very high-level magic with a lot of weird components that are usually hard to find. And he goes, therefore, I will send you on a quest to the southern Kobold ruins. And he goes, the Kobold ruins? Do kobolds build stuff? And he goes, silence, fallen cleric. Listen, your impatience runneth over. And he goes, I will send you to the southern Kobold ruins to retrieve an icon that represents patience, or a relic, if you will, that represents patience. And he goes, well, what is it? You'll know it when you see it. Bring it back to me, and having gone on this personal and spiritual quest, I will cast the atonement spell upon you and restore your powers. So he's getting into it. It's God works in mysterious ways. I have fallen from grace. Now I'm going to work my way back up. So it's going good. He's got like his own sub-quest now. And he goes, okay, I'll do it. Your Holiness, thank you. Cross himself, kiss the ring, all that good stuff. I won't let you down. And he turns and he looks at his party, and he goes, friends, will you help me, please? And he was so sincere about it. It was weird for him because he was usually very brash, very very gung-ho, but he did have like this weird quiet moment where he begs his party for help. It's like, I have to get my powers back. I have to make right what I have done wrong in the eyes of, the God of mercy and light and healing. I must retrieve this relic and get back into his or her good graces. And Tiberius Tygar is leaning in the entryway and goes, the cleric that I assigned to help you through the mountains was no good. To make up for that, I will come with you myself to make sure that your quest is a success. And they go, what about Beano? And you go, Beano's body swirls with great magics. He will be asleep for some time. They're basically going to spoon him soup for a while he's unconscious. And there's little I can do other than stare at him and fret. So it would be a great distraction for me to go with you on this short quest and be able to pay you back for all the help that you've given me. And they look at each other and they go, wow, Tiberius is going to join our party? And they go, yep, he will join your party as a fourth party member. And they go, what is he? And they go, well, if you remember, he was Natishka's bodyguard. Or they called her the Enchantress. I didn't name her at the time because the name wouldn't have meant anything to these four people, or these three people. He was Natishka's bodyguard and took an arrow to the chest for her, so he was a strong and powerful man back then, and he still is, and having been infused with the head and body image of a tiger, he's no doubt still quite strong. So put a long sword in his hands, and I'm sure he'll be able to help you out with whatever nonsense comes your way in the southern Kobold ruins. And they go, yeah, all right. So they gear out Tiberius with, he had his own, heroic longsword, and he had a couple of rings of protection, but they gave him like a cloak and some travel clothes and some rations, and they go, all right, this is kind of cool. Our boss is working with us, or our benefactor is working with us right now. And he's like, all right, we're going to head south. You know, Bino needs his rest, and you need your relic. So let's try and, you know, kill two birds with one stone. This is better than me sitting there next to his bed staring at him and rubbing my paws over each other for the next week or whatever it happens to be. Hierophant, I leave my son in your very able hands. And he goes, you know, safe journeys, my son, and kind of blesses Tiberius before they go. And let's see, what happened next? Yes, so they head south over the Dakota Fields. And yes, the town was called Dakota Fields, and the surrounding region was called Dakota Fields. I'm not good at naming things. But I guess the town of Dakota Fields, they set out south. And south of them are what is referred to as the Kobold Ruins. It's this big set of cliffs that has stone structures sticking out of them that are attributed to Kobold architecture. And that's not a pair of words that usually go together, Kobold and architecture. But apparently, in ancient times, Kobold had permanent structures to live in that weren't underground. So there must have been like a dark age at some point where the sun was not so bright, or before the Kobold got like pushed underground like vermin by the humans and the elves or whatever, who decided that they were a lesser race. Apparently they used to be surface dwellers with much smaller eyes that weren't as sensitive to light, and they were like the ancient Egyptians. They just built everything out of stone that would last forever. And the Kobold Ruins to the south, it could still be hosting, you know, relics, magic weapons, anything that was attributed to ancient Kobold culture. It's like, well, if you pick up a Kobold short sword, it's probably going to be like a dagger for you. So there's not a lot of stuff there, if there's anything there that you're going to be able to pick up and use, you guys. But you're looking for a relic, so don't worry about it too much. And they go, okay. So they set out across the plains, and they run into distractions on the way out there. And, of course, if you know their distractions, they do, like, sonic damage. They scream at you, and they're the size of freaking raptors with those big, long 2 legs. So they're chased all the way across Dakota Fields to the Kobold Ruins, you know, losing stuff that's made of glass, losing stuff that's made of wood. They even lost some things made of metal, because the sonic damage can roll on a D4 and then just bust the item entirely. So they lost a few things on the way, but they did make it there in one piece, and that's what counts. So, I guess we will pick it up next time as our party arrives at the southern Kobold Ruins. So, I hope you enjoyed this story, and I hope you'll pick it up with me next time here on D&D Stories. Keep gaming. Hey guys, thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like button for me. If you want to keep up with channel updates, check me out on Facebook. And if you're feeling especially generous, be sure to visit my Patreon. Keep gaming!